I was physically abused, I was sexually abused, I was pushed down 2 flights of stairs with suitcases rolling under me. Me and my children were held hostage for 3 days. Everywhere he went, I had to follow. If he went to the toilet, I had to stand at the toilet door. We went to a friend's house, I had to sit on the floor next to him like a dog for 3 days. And people saw and nobody said anything. My son was about 4.5. He asked me, is daddy a drug addict? How does a 4.5-year-old even know those words? He was like, nobody's ever gonna love you like me. Nobody's gonna accept you because, you know, you're overweight and you've got 2 kids. Nobody wants a single mum with kids. I was scared that he was the only one that was gonna love me and that I would never find love. I'm a hopeless romantic. I love love.
Can you hold on to the idea of hopeless romantic? What do you mean by that?
I think I deserve love, right? And it took me a while to get to that point, and people are so happy and that their love doesn't hurt. I was fat, I was ugly. My nickname was Piggy. I've had bruising on my body and, you know, worn a long sleeve jumper in the middle of the summer just to hide a bruise. I have been hospitalised a few times. I've been kicked in the face where my nose is completely cracked. And my daughter said to me, I never want to fall in love.
Oh dear.
At 12. And that broke me.
Before we get started, please subscribe so that you never miss an episode of our cutting-edge contemporary conversations. Thank you.
Welcome, Sheree. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you for having me also.
Thank you for having this conversation this afternoon. As we were talking off the camera, you know, you have done so much across your life, and you have a lot of, not for the right reasons, lived experience in the FTV space. I want to explore that part of your story, but before we go there, I think you need to give us a bit of a context. And your story, you're growing up in Perth, being born in Perth and being raised in Perth, and your observations as a young girl.
Yeah, so I guess born and raised in Perth, as we said. I came, like, my parents were married when I was born, but they separated when I was 2 years old and both kind of moved on to other partners and had other children. So fun fact, very early on, I have 6 sisters and 4 brothers, but I am the only child between my parents. So I guess when I was younger, I felt, you know, love and happiness, but then I'm just going to dive right in, I guess. My mum got into an abusive relationship when I was, I say maybe, 6, 7 or so. So I witnessed FTV from a very, very early part of my life. So I've seen my mum be beaten, be yelled at. I had to grow up very quickly, take care of my siblings, my younger siblings. My mum had 2 children to this man, so even to this day, we still see him. I do have to say, again, even though I said my parents split, that it wasn't my dad makes me say that every time because he wants, you know, to know that he wasn't the one that was abusing my mum. So yeah, I guess that was my childhood. I don't remember a lot of my childhood also from the trauma of what my mum went through and then what I went through. By the time I was like 10, I knew how to cook, how to clean the house, how to do grocery shopping, how to do a budget. You know, we were talking before about, you know, washing the dishes with your daughter and stuff. You know, imagine her being 10 years old having to run the entire household. So I grew up, really quickly, and then I guess just got into my own relationship and just continued that cycle for myself, I guess.
Wow. If I can ask, 6 is fairly very young to observing, you know, some form of TV.
Yeah.
Whether it's physical or emotional.
Yeah.
How has that impacted you in terms of, you know, general life today, at this day, and how is it limiting or helping you some way or form? What do you think about those experiences or exposures to you?
Yeah, so I think witnessing at a very young age, and I did witness my mum one time being physically abused. I'll tell you that story. I was sitting down watching Saturday Disney with my little sisters, and in the background I could hear the screaming, the yelling, things being thrown around, my mum screaming, stop, help. I did nothing, just like screaming and yelling and crying, like you can hear her crying. And then there was a knock on the door and someone came to the door, and I was like, oh, maybe it's the police or someone coming to help, somebody has to help if they're knocking at the door. But so my mum's abuser walked out and opened the door, and they had a conversation. And I remember this so clearly in my mind, even to this day. My mum crouched on the floor in the fetal position, her clothes like ripped from her body, blood on her face, her hair was stuck to her face, tears, and we made eye contact. And I remember her saying, like mouthing to me, I'm okay. And I was just like, okay, what else can I do? I can't go and save you. So that's a memory that's really stayed in my head. And then, the abuse with him continued for quite a few years. And I think she ended up leaving him when I was like 12 or so. But by the time I was 12, as I said before, I'd already, raised my siblings and all of that. I didn't at that stage feel like a child. I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel, I guess, like an innocent anymore, So that really shaped, I guess, the way I went into my teenage years and everything, because I was looking for that love. I was looking for that validation. And just wanting someone to love me. And then I suppressed a lot of, I guess, my childhood that I don't remember. So then when I guess I got into my relationship and then had my children, I tried to give them that white picket fence, that, 2-parent family. And I tried to do that because I didn't have it. So I think that's why I also stayed as long as I did in my relationship too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was speaking at one of the local conferences as a speaker. I was moderating a panel, and we were talking about privilege. And for me, the privilege is to have both parents across your growing years.
Yeah.
And in post-conference, a young lady came to me and she says, I never thought about having both parents in your life, a stable household, as a privilege.
Yeah.
My response was, go and talk to people who don't have one.
Yes. Yeah.
And then you'll understand how much privilege that is to have a stable household for young kids.
Exactly. It is just looking for stability, especially when I was, that young and I didn't have it. So I was just trying to find it to give my children what I didn't have, which I think is what every parent wants to do, right? So, yeah, it was just, I guess, my siblings as well, we all have different views of how our childhood is. Sometimes they'll go, do you remember this? And I'll be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I'll be like, do you remember this? And they'll be like, that didn't happen. I'll be like, yes, it did. So I think I've also created things in my mind to be able to get through sometimes my day-to-day life after having all of that trauma.
And then that trauma happened from the age of 6 to the age of 12?
Yeah, with my mum's abuser. Yeah, and then I had to stand up to this man a few times. He yelled at us. He never abused the children that were in the house physically. It was more directed to my mum. But again, being the eldest, having to, take my siblings out of the lounge room and lock us in the toilet. So we also grew up quite poor. So we lived in Homes West housing. Our toilet was outside. We had cockroaches, mice. It wasn't pretty where we grew up. So, taking them and locking them in the outside toilet and standing at the door to make sure that, they couldn't come in, or sing made up songs just to drown out the noises. It's just really, yeah.
You were mothering from a very early age.
Very, very early age.
And how has that protective nature of yours for your siblings, as you will, rush to a closed room and start singing, or distracting the younger ones? Do you call that as courage, or do you call that as strength? What do you call that as? And then how do you see that moment of taking responsibility for your siblings?
I just call it being a big sister. I don't call it strength. I don't call it courage. It's what I had to do. It was, I don't know, it was just my role as such, you know, like being the elder sister. I was their second mum. Like my youngest brother, there's 11 years between us. I practically raised him for the first, few years of his life. So if he sees me out, at a restaurant or a bar, he goes funny because he's like, "You're my mum. What are you doing here?" So to me, it was just, I don't know, just being a big sister. Like I just had to put however I was feeling aside to protect them. So if anything, I'd say I was their protector than anything, yeah.
Wow. And from there on, when you turned 12, 13, 14, and how did you manage to get out of the abusive situation from the family?
So my mum split up with that man, and then she, I guess, met somebody new and started a new relationship, very sweet man. They're no longer together, but we still call him our stepdad. We still have a really good relationship with him, and I think he came in and showed us what a loving relationship could be like, how to take care of the family, because he accepted my mum with her, 5 children without any hesitation, like he loved us and he cared for us, and, he didn't care that we lived in a house with cockroaches or, things like that. So I think that helped to rebuild our belief in, I guess, a decent relationship. But then, I think when I had that, but then I got in trouble at school one day because I left school grounds without telling anybody when you're not supposed to. And then I got in trouble and I went home and my parents had a conversation on a phone and I overheard some things that I probably shouldn't have. And then that just, I guess, crushed me. And then I guess I just started trying to find someone to love me.
That's a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
That's a cliffhanger. I think listening, some kind of confronting language from your parents towards you is always challenging. And it stays with you all your life.
It does. Yeah.
Because you naturally see that, loving and care coming from your parents or security being felt to be, sense of security, all of that. How did you process it at that point in time when you heard it? And what was the process?
I guess at that time I was just like, what they said was, I don't want her to come and stay here, because my dad obviously had remarried and I don't want her to come and stay here. And my mum was like, well, I don't want her here, because they thought I was going to get into a lot of trouble and then I was going to get really naughty. So that's what they said. And then I was like, that's not what I'm even doing, So then it hurt me because I was like, well, nobody wants me. And I was kind of like, I gave up my whole childhood to care for my siblings, to take care of them, to take care of my mum when she was hurt, to make sure the household still run. And then all my sacrifices as such as a child was just overlooked, and then to be like, well, I don't want her. It hurt me, and I still remember it to this day, 30 odd years, or maybe not 30, but, a few years later, I still remember that moment. And then, I just didn't feel valued or loved after I heard that. And but what do? I just suppressed it and went on with my day and just kept going to school, never got in trouble at school again, but, you just, sweep it under the rug. I guess it's the same,
The sense of rejection is the biggest pain.
Yeah.
Or sense of being unwanted is very painful to, think and then feel and just coming from your parents.
Yeah.
The world can say whatever they have to say, but parents is something else.
Yes.
And then, so being a young adult, how had that all those experiencing, observing a DV and then, mothering your siblings in a sense of rejection in many ways. How has that formed you as a young adult? How was your young life?
I would say my young life was just probably the same as anybody else's. whether I, like reflecting with talking with you now, because I never really have reflected, I think that's when I already began learning how to just hide everything. You know, just keep going on with your day. There's nobody to talk to. There's too many other problems going on. We've got to make sure there's food to eat. You know, nobody cares about how I'm feeling. So I think I just learnt to suppress it. As I said, lock it down inside me deep, where I've just forgotten a lot of my childhood, a lot of my young adult, you know, memories I don't really remember, which is really sad. So
No, I think the worst thing you can do to a child is take the childhood away.
yeah, exactly.
I don't know how you do recover from it.
Just keep going. Just keep doing what I got to do, because like even now I have to just keep doing what I'm doing, because sitting down and feeling sorry for myself, it doesn't get me anywhere. I can't go back and I can't change the past. All I can do is learn from my past, understand my past, heal from my past, process it, and now just move on with my life, trying to do better, right? Trying to educate, trying to give my children the childhood that I didn't get, but still teach them valuable lessons. You know, just keep going.
And how is your current family life, or you know, when you are adult? You have how many kids? You have two kids, yeah.
Yeah.
And how has that translated between, you know, your families and your husband/partner and your kids? How has that?
So my kids are good. Obviously, when, you know, we first left, there was a lot of trauma. There was a lot of bitterness. Oh, not bitterness, I would say. They were angry. They were sad, confused. It's probably the word I'm looking for, because they didn't know what's going on. But I've always tried to take what I went through and not put it onto them, and just try to do things differently for them. So they understand the things that I've been through. They understand the things that they've been through. I don't badmouth their father. They had their own relationship with him, and that's their relationship. So I don't try to, you know, put my feelings and things like that onto theirs. But they're good. Everybody's good. I'm in a much happier place now. I have a great partner who understands what I've been through, doesn't judge me for it, you know, listens to me, supports me in everything that I do in this field. So we're doing good. We're doing good, yeah.
How's the journey from being, this is a difficult one for me to ask as well, from a journey from being an observer of domestic violence to be the recipient of the domestic violence? How do you see that to yourself?
It was when I was, I guess...
Not to minimize apologies, not to minimize that. Observing DV is also DV towards the child.
No, not at all. I think when I first got into the relationship, I was very young. I was 16. So I was already feeling so vulnerable and unloved from my parents and, you know, my childhood. I just wanted attention, love, as any young girl does, you know. So when he came along and he swept me off my feet and gave me everything I wanted, I felt special. And yeah, just a young girl in love, pretty much, you know, spoilt me. But the abuse started very early on in my relationship. You know, the first time I was physically abused was 3 months into our relationship, where I got a slap across the face from a text message from a school friend. And in that moment, I was like, I should leave. But I was getting love, I put that in quotes, love, from someone who I genuinely thought loved me, because I hadn't gotten attention and support for so long. So it's so weird, because I knew it was wrong, because I had witnessed everything my mum had gone through and how, you know, she dealt with it, and then how I dealt with it and how it affected myself and all my siblings. but yet I still chose to stay in that because I wanted someone to love me. If that, as weird as that sounds, I just wanted someone to love me. And the whole time I was in the relationship, 16 years, I always knew it was wrong. I always knew it was wrong, but by that time I was just so intertwined with him, with, you know, our lives together, and then our children came along, and then I wanted, you know, the happy two-parent family for them. I just continued to stay. One of my best friends at the time, she got married, and 6 weeks into her marriage, her husband slapped her. I was her number one advocate to leave. Mm-hmm. I told her, get out before it gets worse, all of that, whilst I was still in my relationship with my abusive partner. So it was like my heart and my mind knew it was wrong, but they just couldn't connect to make that decision to kind of leave.
And so 16 years of marriage or relationship.
Yeah.
And the third month you get physically abused.
Yeah.
What kind of abuse it was? It was just physical, or it was emotional and financial? What kind of abuse went on, if you don't mind sharing?
So the physical started 3 months as I got a slap in the face, and then I got a golf-sized ball appear on my face and a black eye. And then it just kind of escalated more and more over time. But it's really weird. I keep saying things that are really weird. I say, you know, abusers are very smart. Now I might get some, what are you talking about? You know, that's not a good thing to say. But I think they're very smart because they know how to manipulate you from the very beginning. So whilst I was getting all of this love, he was still doing things to test me, if that makes sense, to see if he did something, how I would react. If he, for example, looked at another girl, what was my reaction? How was I going to deal with that, you know? So then he kind of, wrapped me around his finger, I would say, as such, so that everything I needed to do, I had to do with him. So then, the physical abuse got worse and worse. There were times when I would have to put on a lot of makeup on my face to go out. There's times I've had bruising on my body and have, you know, worn a long sleeve jumper in the middle of the summer just to hide a bruise. I have been hospitalised a few times. I've been kicked in the face where my nose is completely cracked. And I was laying on the lounge with my son when that happened, and he was about 3 years old. So it was blood pouring out everywhere. My son seen that, cuts, bruises, all of that stuff. We used to have a family dinner with my family, and sometimes I'd cancel the dinner, and then I'd put makeup on, hide in the toilet because they'd FaceTime me, and, you know, the lighting in the toilet was a bit dark so they couldn't see the bruises. So that was the physical side of things. And then, you know, there was obviously sexual abuse in the relationship as well, financial abuse. I walked away with a very, very large debt to my name when I left, and I had to pay it off. I had to pay off all the debt because it was in my name. This is, you know, I have left 10 years ago now. So when I left, there was no Tenancy Act to help you with your rentals. There was nothing where you could call, you know, the electricity company and say, this is what's happened, or the, you know, water companies like that. Credit cards, car loans, I had to pay it all. And I only just finished paying it maybe like 6 years ago. So even though I'd left, I was still paying for everything. I got a bad credit rating. It was just terrible. And then emotional abuse was every day. I was told I was fat, I was ugly. My nickname was Piggy. And even his friends called me Piggy. You know, they just thought it was just a nickname that they could call me. And I couldn't say anything to them. I couldn't say, well, that's not my name, don't call me that, because he would just be like, let them call you that. It's fine. You know, it's that's your nickname. So I got that on a daily basis. And then, you know, if I cooked dinner, it was like, well, dinner's not good enough. Or if I did this, it wasn't good enough. But then there was also the emotional abuse of what I would wear. So one day I could wear an outfit and then the next day I couldn't wear the same outfit, or, you know, like not exactly the next day, but like a week later, I'd put on the same outfit and he's like, you can't wear that because that's too short or that's not showing enough skin. So you've got the two different ways of him thinking depending on his mood on the same outfit. So there was a lot of, you know, that abuse that I held on to and sometimes still have a little bit inside of me, of just the way, I guess, sometimes the way I see the world or the way I went into other relationships. But there's a lot of also, I was isolated from my family, even though they would still call me. I would go weeks without messaging anybody, without talking to anybody, not wanting to see anybody, because also the whole time I was feeling shamed and embarrassed that I was still in this relationship that I knew was completely wrong. So I'd just pull myself away from everybody so that no one could ask me questions about it or, you know, want to talk about what was happening at home. One time someone did ask me and I went into defence mode and just completely separated myself from them and never spoke to them again. So there's a lot that was going on for 16 years.
As you were talking about, abusers are smart, they just manipulate. How do you feel you were conditioned to be okay with escalating abuse at all levels? And from a mindset point of view, because at the same time you have the understanding of to advocate for others, which means you can think that, you know, that's not acceptable behavior, but so there's a dichotomy of, you know, both sides, that when the abuser was saying that this same dress on a different week is not good and bad for different reasons, but there's dichotomy there, as in you at the same time as an advocate and same time you were okay to receive a larger intensity of abuse on your front. How can those two persons live in the same head? I'm just trying to figure out that. And
I have no idea, to be honest.
How did you, and I think, how was the manipulation? How was the conditioning of your head to think that way?
So I think, as I said, it starts very early on. So, and because also, after I did leave, I went and I had a psychologist, so I spoke to her a lot, and she said because I was so young, my brain hadn't fully developed, and it had been wired. It became wired a certain way with being with him because of all being so young, just hearing all the things, starting to believe it, because I didn't have any life experience to know. I guess. That's weird because my mum was in the abusive relationship, but life experience of myself, I guess, being in other relationships, I don't know. It's just weird. It's just...
Please don't suppress that. Don't call it weird, but I think it's your experience. And
it's... I don't even know, but I think it was just... It's done very smallly, like, you know, the reactions you give and then they read you.
In a micro sense.
Yes. So you don't even know that it's kind of happening to you. It's probably the easiest way. You don't even know. You just think it's a part of a relationship. You just think that's how it is, like the love bombing. You know, you just think that's how it's supposed to be of, oh, my God, I love you, I love you, I love you, you know, like a lot. And as I said, like I wanted that because I wasn't getting that. So I feel that's why I accepted it a lot as well. And I think,
Do you think the conditioning of so when you sit with your counselor or psychologist, the conditioning of you accepting the abuse, did that start post you found the last relation, as in your first relationship, or it was when you were a young girl? When did the conditioning in your head was young as you were 6 when you're observing, or is it happened probably post?
I think it's probably a combination of both, to be honest. Like, you know, witnessing what my mum went through and then suppressing it and going, okay, like I don't know, it's just so weird because, as I said, like I knew it was wrong, but yet I still stayed. I don't even know how to explain it. Like I don't even know what words to use, but I think it's, I think just shame and embarrassment would probably be the biggest forefront of anything. Like I guess I didn't want to come out of the relationship and go home and tell my family what was happening, because they'd be like, well, you're an idiot, because mum went through this and now you've just gone and done the same thing. But
I have done the same thing.
Just
it has
like
happened to
getting
you.
into the same,
It has happened to you.
situation as what mum went through.
Yeah.
So
Oh God.
yeah, I think that's probably it. I mean, that's what I think they would think, but it's not what they would think. But just at that time, that's, I think, how I was feeling. And then when you get told, I love you so much and I want to be with you forever and we're going to, have kids and we're going to have this perfect life and all of that, you believe it because, again, I didn't have that growing up. So I guess I held on to the dream and the potential of what I hoped the relationship would be as time went on, or as we had children and got older and things like that.
God. I'm just... because I won't be able to empathize all of it, but I can try to understand where it is, because it has never happened with me. I've never seen abuse in my life, so
you're one of the lucky ones.
I've been
then.
sheltered from that point of view. I'm still I'm struggling with for myself to understand with the idea of the escalation and then at which point of escalation, because how many times you have to be hospitalized to realize that it is not good, for how many times you have to be punched in the face to know it's not good. And for me, these things are not normal.
Yes, yeah.
And then what were the things which became normal for you?
Yeah.
Which is in your current happy relationship is not acceptable or normal.
Yeah.
So during the escalation period, if you can just tell me with few examples or a few things which you think it should not be normal, but they became normal for me.
Yeah. So I guess the name calling is a big one that became normal. It would be it wouldn't, when you're in a relationship, you get babe or hun. It was like, hey, Piggy, come here. Piggy, do this, Piggy. Everything was just Piggy. My name was never used. And it was used in front of everybody, in front of, he even said in front of my family, in front of friends who then just, you picked up that name as well. So then that became a normal thing. I didn't like it, and I said something, but then was shut down. So then I just had to accept it, and it just was normalized. And then, the way, I guess another way of being normalized was I had to read his body language, read the energy in the room. Every day when he woke up, I had to say, okay, is he going to have a good day? Is he going to be a bad day? I had to understand if he said a word a certain way, was he about to get really angry? I had to watch, if he was angry, I had to watch if he was going to throw a plate or if it was going to be, I was going to get the hit. So I had to normalize walking on eggshells. I had to normalize being hyper-vigilant all the time, always reading a room, trying to fall asleep after he's fallen asleep, just to stay safe. That all just became a normal part of my everyday life. I just
feeling insecure in your own house.
Yeah, insecure.
The feeling of insecurity of permanently on a lookout.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, it's kind of like, say, your house is on fire. Being
vigilant all the time.
Yeah. But you're the only one that can smell the smoke in the house. So always having to look for, an escape or an exit to try to get out of this burning house. But you can't find that escape or exit.
Dear me, Lord.
Yeah.
Oh, God. So You can see I'm being uncomfortable in terms of.
okay.
Don't empathize with me.
No.
I'm just being.
I
Can't understand the sense.
It's
of
very hard to understand if you've never been around it, because we know it's not normal. I know it's not normal. I know it's not right. So the human mind knows these things. So when I'm saying that it became normal, you'll be like, but it's not. Like, how can it be normal? So I completely understand how it's,
I think my emotions are probably not that important at this stage.
No,
because things have happened to you.
No.
But can you give a bit of a context on the abuser?
Yeah.
Because I need to. What was his growing up, or what was his life?
Yeah.
Because to come at that space for a man to. So I was raised by strong women. My grandmothers, my aunties, my mom, my sisters. So I've got a few people around me. To understand what is wrong and right, and then the family was a large family.
Yeah.
So I didn't understood what's the context of this young man or this man growing up and to end up being desensitized to abuse your partner or your wife.
Yeah, so he was born in Thailand by a very young mum. So his mum had him when she was 14 years old. Never knew his dad. His dad left when the mum fell pregnant, and then he was left in Thailand, and then his mum migrated to Australia. She got married. She married a very wealthy man, so he always had money sent home, and he was spoilt. So he lived with his aunties, and he was spoilt with whatever toy he wanted or whatever. He was, allowed to buy it. Then he migrated to Australia when he was 12, and then lived with his mum and stepdad. An Italian family, very close family. Again, had whatever he wanted, all of that. But his mum was an alcoholic. So drank a lot. They fought a lot of the times just because of her drinking. She'd get angry and she'd yell.
Yell to him on him.
Yeah, they just yell, arguments, So his mum was very dominant in her marriage to her husband. But there was never violence in that home. It was just physical violence. I mean, there was the yelling. The stepdad was a beautiful man, but she passed away when she was 38 from alcohol and drugs. And that, I guess, broke him. And he was 23 at the time when that happened. But the abuse obviously had started before that and was already, 5-6 years into the relationship. So honestly, I don't know what went through his mind. I mean, he was I'm not going to say typical boy, but, he would get into fights when he went out. He would adrenaline, liked fast cars, all of that stuff. But I don't think there was anything that, I guess, would have triggered, if that makes sense, for him to be violent against women. It's not like he was abused as a child and then carried that cycle himself. So that would have to be a question you would have to ask him, to be honest.
No, I'm just trying to get a context on the other side. Some people.
I do know though, culturally in Thailand, so my mum is Thai as well, that abusing women is not frowned upon. It can be quite common in Thailand, in parts of Asia, where it's just normalized again. So whether something happened when in the first 12 years of his life in Thailand, which he never told me about, he may have seen that.
What was your pathway out of your relationship?
So
what was your pathway out of your relationship? And, because because things were escalating. And then when did you tell yourself, I want to put brakes on here, and then, I need to leave this relationship? And how was that pathway out? It was quick, or it was kind of slow and then gradual?
Yeah, very slow. 16 years slow. So during the 16 years, I did try to leave twice. And the third time was successful. The first time I tried to leave was, I just had enough. Like, I was like, I'm just done, and then I went back and stayed at my mum's, but then you have all the love bombing. You have all the promises. You have, I'll never do it again. I love you so much. Please, I'll change. And I believed him. And then went back, and then it was good, for a few months. And then it started again, the abuse started slowly and then escalating. And then the second time I left, I had a massive fight with him. I don't even know what it was about. And I was like, I'm done. I can't be here anymore. So I actually texted my father, who lived in Mandurah, and he drove down to Perth to come and pick me and my two children up, because I was like, I can't. So then he, screamed, yelled, everything, followed me to my dad's house, started smashing on the door, banging. My dad had to run out in his underwear, a 60-year-old man, a little bit chubby, running down the street, trying to get my ex to get away from the house. But then my son had run out of the house at the same time. So just my dad was trying to chase him and I was trying to chase my son. So there was a lot going on. Then the police came and he got moved on. And then I stayed at my dad's for like a week. And then I moved in with one of my sisters. And then the love bombing started again. The car was parked outside the house, sending me messages, waking up every morning to help me take the kids to school, doing all the things that I wanted him to do when we were together. So obviously, okay, you'll change, went back. So then another time there was another fight. I had gotten a restraining order on him actually after the Mandurah incident, and being the good parent and then, wanting people to have him to have a relationship with his kids, I breached the VRO myself and I took my son to go and visit him. And when I walked into the house, he deadbolted the door behind me. And I was like, I shouldn't have come here. Like, automatically I knew something was about to go down. I walked into the lounge room and my phone auto-corrected the word you to Joe. And he grabbed my phone, was like, who's Joe? I was like, I don't know anybody called Joe. Escalated. I was punched in the head, dragged across the floor, kicked, beaten, just completely beaten, all while my son was there. I managed to escape through a back door, jump a fence, fall down and just run down the street. And I had to leave my son in the house with him. It was the only way I could get out. So for about an hour, I walked around the streets trying to get the courage to go to a stranger's door to ask them to call the police for me. I've got bruising, bleeding, my jeans are ripped at this stage. Took me an hour to get help. I called the police, they came and then they left and then they came back, got my son out, and then the police forced me to go to the hospital just because I'd been hit in the head so many times, and then they pressed charges on him. And time went on and then we got back together again. But the final, I wouldn't say that the final time, but I'll rewind back first, was he was a drug addict towards the end of our relationship, he started getting very heavily involved in methamphetamine. So he was what I call a high-functioning drug addict. So he was still going to work. Well, when he did work, he didn't always work. He was still going to work, still doing his job. When he was high, then he'd come home and take another puff, get high again. He was always in the bathroom doing things, and I was constantly fighting with him because he was stealing money out of my bank account. So he had all my bank cards, had the passwords to my bank accounts, to the point where if I was getting paid from work at midnight, I'd have to be online transferring money out so that he couldn't get it. So I just started going, you're a drug addict, you're a drug dealer, you're useless, blah, blah, blah. Also, my children were listening to that. To the point when I think my son was about 4.5, he asked me, is daddy a drug addict? How does a 4.5-year-old even know those words? And that was from me. So that was, I guess, one of the moments that I was like, okay, I need to try to get out of this, because I'm now abusing my own children. Not physically, but emotionally and mentally, because they're hearing the things that I'm saying to their father. They're seeing the things that he's doing to me. So that was one of the moments. And then the final moment was me and my children were held hostage for 3 days. So hostage, I would say, is like I wasn't allowed to be more than, out of eyesight. I couldn't be arm's length away from him. Everywhere he went, I had to follow. If he went to the toilet, I had to stand at the toilet door. And we went to a friend's house. I had to sit on the floor next to him at our friend's house like a dog, and have to eat out of a bowl like a dog for 3 days. And people saw and nobody said anything. And then he was like, okay, you can go home with the kids now. And this was probably 2 a.m. So I got in the car. It was a 20-minute drive. At the 23rd minute, he'd call and say, come back. And I had to go back. And it's probably like, well, why didn't you just go? Why? It's just so hard. I was under so much duress. I guess I was like just trying to survive to the next day. So I just go along with what was happening. But then that final day, I was like, I've had enough. Like something just snapped inside me. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I need to go. So I called my mum, like, come and get me. And she was 20 minutes away. Everybody's always 20 minutes. She was 20 minutes away. And during that time, I was trying to pack suitcases, passports, documents. But in that 20 minutes, I was physically abused. I was sexually abused. I was pushed down 2 flights of stairs with suitcases rolling under me. When he was always like, well, that's what you get. That's what you get. And then my mum rocked up and he starts crying to her and starts calling her mum. And it's like, I don't understand why she's trying to leave me. I don't understand why she's taking my kids away. And mum was like, I don't know. My daughter called. I just come and get her. So we, got out of the house. And then where we lived had a gate. And he had the remote for the gate. I had to pay my way out with cash to get out of the gate. So he demanded that I give him $10,000 cash. It was a weekend. And I remember it's a weekend because the banks aren't open. I had to drive around to, a couple of ATMs to get as much as I could get out. And all I could get out was $2,000. So I gave him the $2,000. He was like, okay, you can give me the rest later. And then I just drove off with my mum, slept on my sister's floor for months, and then just rebuilt myself. But whilst I was at my sister's, the abuse didn't stop. I had constant text messages, phone calls, just harassment, came to my workplace. So then I had to tell my workplace what was happening. They had no idea what was happening. So even though I left, there was still just so much that continued. I got very sick, ended up in hospital from the stress. Had to get VROs. So yeah, that was how I got out after multiple times of trying and then being dragged back into the cycle of abuse.
Can I make an observation?
Yeah.
When you were saying that you were a young girl and then you felt from your parents on the phone call unwanted, and then you wanted love in your life. And every time you wanted to leave, you were pulled back through love bombing.
Yeah.
And probably that was a tool to be used against you, which was your all humans needs love.
Yes, exactly.
That was used against.
Yeah, but it was also the emotional abuse that I'd experienced, because it was like, nobody's ever going to love you like me. You'll never find anybody like me. Nobody's going to accept you because, you're overweight. I wasn't overweight. You're overweight and you've got 2 kids. Nobody wants a single mum with kids, basically saying that I was used goods. And that was put on me so often that when he was like, I'm the only one that's going to love you, I was scared that he was the only one that was going to love me, and that I would never find love and I'd never get, my happily ever after. I'm a hopeless romantic. I love love. If people are like, how can you love love? But I do. And when he told me that I would never have that, and he was my only option to have that, of course I'm going to, try to hold on to that and believe him, because I just wanted love, really. So,
can you hold on to the idea of hopeless romantic? What do you mean by that? Not just with it, generally. What do you... So you think you are a hopeless romantic, and how do you define me? What do you mean by that?
I think I deserve love, right? Yeah. And it took me a while to get to that point. And I love how, people are so happy and that their love doesn't hurt, and the white picket fence. I don't know, all the things that a young girl dreams of, the white picket fence, the beautiful big weddings. And I think I created that space and never gave up on that hope, even from my childhood, because I knew that I wanted that at the core. No matter how long it took me, I'm getting emotional. I would find real love. I would have someone who genuinely loves me for all my flaws, all my past, my childhood. Just someone, someone who just accepted me, and my white picket fence, my dream of, and I also used that as a tool for myself when I was in that abusive relationship. I would wander in my mind to that place, and that, I think that also helped me get through at certain times.
And I think humans have survived through difficult times with the hope.
Yeah.
And that I had sense of hope, a sense of the dreaminess of, being a romantic.
Yes.
Having that yearning and need for the love.
Yes.
And I think all humans deserve, love.
Exactly.
And how's the dream going for you?
Good. I got my white picket fence. Yes, I didn't even realise that I bought a house with a white picket fence.
Did you?
And I got 2 dogs. It's good. I've got a really great guy, a partner, someone who's really good with my kids, who accepts my kids and doesn't see them, as Sheree's kids, which is really nice.
Because you have observed, and then you you were abused, and that's cyclical nature of some things were normalized for you in your head as you were talking about those things. Your kids have observed TV until what age? And do you have those conversations with them, and how they have become adults, and how have their mental health evolved?
Yeah, so when I left, my son was about 6 and my daughter was 9. So we left 10 years ago now, just in September. So upon leaving, my daughter was heartbroken. She was a daddy's little girl. So she was very heartbroken, upset, but understood as much as I guess a 10-year-old could, 9-year-old, 10-year-old could understand why we had to leave. It was Dad's hurting Mum, and they could see it, you know, so it's not like he would beat me behind closed doors. It was done in front of them, so they could see it themselves. So she was, heartbroken, upset, and it wasn't until she was about 12 years old, 12, 13, we had a conversation, and she said to me, I never want to fall in love.
Oh dear.
At 12. And that broke me because I'm still a hopeless romantic at heart at that time. And she said she never wanted to fall in love because she said, what if I'm the reason that Dad went this way? What if the reason he became violent and abusive and did drugs was because I was born? So she blamed herself for a while for the path that he chose to take. And she's like, I never want to get married as well. I never want to have kids. At 12 years old, I was just shook. I said, no. I said, you can't make that decision this young based off what I went through. You know, your dad had his own demons. He was fighting his demons, and unfortunately the demons won. And then that was it. We never had a conversation again. My son witnessed a lot more of the physical abuse because he was a lot younger, so he was with me a lot more, because it did towards the end, you know, escalate to over time a lot more. He was angry when we left, and so when he went to school he acted out a little bit, but then he was in year 1 or 2, so acted out but not a lot, like he didn't get in a lot of trouble. But then he turned around and became a little dobber at school. So anytime anyone was doing something wrong, he'd run to the teacher and say, such and such is doing this, or he didn't put his rubbish in the bin, or he, you know, didn't do that. And the teachers couldn't understand why he'd suddenly changed, and then I had to explain to them what was going on, and then we worked out it was because he couldn't say anything to anybody at home. When he came to school and he was able to tell someone what was happening in the school, he just did it more as his way of expressing what he was hiding inside. They both went to therapy, had a few sessions, and then they seemed to be okay. We don't talk about him. We haven't spoken about him. They didn't see him for the 10 years since we left. The last time they saw him was he was having a physical altercation with a friend of mine, because again, trying to be the good mum, the better parent, the bigger person. I took the children to go see him, and in a public place, and when I took them to see him, he started a physical altercation with a friend, because I didn't want to go alone, so I asked someone to come with me. So the last thing they saw of their dad was, you know, him bleeding from his face and yelling and screaming and punching up with somebody else. So that was their last memory of him. We never talked about him. As I said, I never talked bad about him. I didn't put any of my feelings or anything onto them. They just had their own feelings and memories of him themselves.
Wow. I don't know where to go from here, but how's the girl? Hope she wants to get married and find yes, love.
She does.
And because I think all.
She's got a beautiful boyfriend now, and they've been together for a few years. The real opposite of her father, I would say. Very quiet man, very gentle, very loving, very caring. So I'm glad she found that. And they've been together, I don't know if I said this, but they've been together for about 3 years now. And she does see a future with him. You know, she has talked about marriage with him. And so I'm glad, you know, that's worked out well for her.
Dear me. If you have to pick up as in, you know, yes, as in retrospect, everybody is, you know, a bit more wiser, you know, they might have done. So what do you think for you in terms of the 16-year journey of the abuse? Where would you have pulled the pin? You would have, what behaviors you would have called out, what you would have observed, what you have done in many scenarios? Where would you have, you know, put some brakes on things?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I do think about that sometimes, because there's moments where I'm like, I wish I never met him. But then I'm like, if I didn't meet him, I wouldn't have my children. So I just put it as a part of what my life plan is. I feel, you know, that what I went through, I had to go through to be able to do what I do today, to help somebody out, somebody else out. And, you know I should have walked away when I got that first slap to the face, or when I first got that, called that name, but then I would have such a different life to the life that I have now. You know, I wanted to be a lawyer when I was younger, and I'm not, you know, so I could have been a lawyer and all of that stuff and not had children and just focused on my career, but I was given my children. And then, so it's hard, because if I did one thing, then I wouldn't have the other thing, you know, so because I couldn't call it out as much in my relationship, I think that's why I was calling it out for my friends with her husband and being her advocate. But I think I was just entwined with him too much. And, you know, even if I did during the times try to have the conversations of, you know, you're hurting me, or let's talk about it, was always shut down. So then when it's shut down, you go straight into survival mode. So you're like, okay, I know I have to be quiet, because if not, I'm going to get a punch to the head. So then it's never brought up again. So you get that fear instilled in you, so that you don't have these conversations, and you just also have to just normalize it.
What kind of work you are doing in this space? I think you have involved yourself in, you know, delivering, you know, presentations and keynotes of some sorts. But what kind of work which is more close to you, and what kind of work do you want to do in the space? Yeah,
so I guess the biggest thing I want to do is raise awareness. Right? Start those conversations. I want to, and I would love to stop making family and domestic violence so taboo. So it's a behind closed door problem, because it's a community problem. It's everybody's problem. It's not, you know, just a female's problem. It's not just a male's problem. It's not just...
It's known fact, healthy families, healthy communities.
Yeah.
So the families are not healthy.
Yes.
The communities are broken.
Exactly, right?
Broken families, broken communities.
Exactly, and broken people.
Yeah.
Right? Broken people hurt.
Broken kids.
Yeah. So you have a whole cycle, a whole everything that can happen. So I want to stop making family and domestic violence so taboo. Have the conversations. Don't wear the shame and embarrassment on your own. You know, understand and educate on what family and domestic violence is, because so many people think it's just physical abuse, but it's not. There's so much more behind it. But I also want to be the hope and inspiration for anybody still in that kind of relationship, to know that, you know, if you don't get out on the first time, maybe you can get out on the second or third time. Just not give up hope, and then have that hope that you can live the life you deserve after, that you can rebuild yourself, that you're not broken or damaged. You know, just be like, just get out and be happy, you know. that's what I want to do, but also educate the next generation, right? Because I think we have this, you know, what is, as you said, like what is not a happy home, what is not a healthy relationship. I want to educate them on what can happen if there's not a healthy home or not a healthy relationships. Because we all have, you know, the healthy relationship programs and whatnot. I want to show them what happens on the other side. Because if we don't know what happens on the other side, we're going to be curious and we're going to try to work, you know, find out what happens on the other side when we can prevent it if we can understand it to begin with. I think the overall thing for me is and you're going to think this is weird, I think it's weird, but I say it all the time, is if I can prevent or help someone from going through what I went through, then what I went through was worth it. Right? So I can turn my pain into purpose and just to save somebody else's life, then I'll be happy.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that part of the story. In conclusion, if you can, how has the, purpose through pain, if you can, delve a bit more on that idea of purpose through pain.
Yeah.
That I don't want anybody to go through pain, but it has happened, and then you're converting that pain to purpose.
Yeah.
So if you can delve on that idea a bit more in conclusion, and that'll be lovely.
So I think domestic violence is a part of me, right? The abuse I went through is a part of me, but it doesn't define who I am. I have had to look at my life and go, do I want to just sit on the floor and cry and not move on with my life and still give him control over my life after I've left him? No. He's already taken so much from me. I don't want to give him my future as well. I don't want to give him my children's future because we've all been through so much together. So trying to turn my pain into purpose is, I guess, for inspiration, for that hope, for that education, to give a voice to women who can't speak up yet, whether they're silenced still being in the relationship or they're silenced because they don't want shame and embarrassment brought to them, by friends or family who don't know what's going on, but also a voice to the women and children who've lost their lives, right? Because if we stay silent, the violence just keeps growing. So I don't want to stay silent. I need to get my story out there so people can, learn from it, be educated from it, develop policies from it, to just raise the awareness of I went through this. I went through over 20 years worth of family and domestic violence, right? I've known family and domestic violence almost my entire life. So I did the calculations of by the time I have been out of family and domestic violence, I'll be in retirement age. Because I've been in family and domestic violence longer than I've been out. So wanting to show that, yes, I went through all of that and this is who I am now. And I'm trying to create a better world, even if it's just for one person. But I'm also trying to, I'm going to get emotional now, I'm just trying to let my children know that, Mum went through all of this and I've come out stronger and more resilient, and I've shown them forgiveness, and I can break the cycle for them and I can break the cycle for...
It stops here.
It stops with me, exactly. So when my children have children and then they can be like, well, that was my grandma that did that, or my grandma was this, or my great-grandma, that's... I think my children and my grandkids are going to be my legacy as such. I'm not doing it for status or legacy, but it's just for me because I want to break that for them, and then,
Such a powerful purpose.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
I'm very honored to hear and be honored to listen to your story, and you're very kind to share that.
Of course, my pleasure. Anytime.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.